Welcome back to Postscript for Season 2, Episode 2 of our Miss Scarlet Summer. I'm Christina Zeiders.
And I'm Tom Downing, and you can watch along with us on the PBS video app or by going to witf.org/passport.
Yes, and then you can join us on your favorite podcast platform, or you can watch this podcast on youtube.com/@WITF Mosaic.
And we have a special treat for you this season, our very first edition of Postscript Bingo. We mentioned it last episode, but we were going to mention it again.
Yep, because there's still time to go back and watch the first episode and play along with us. You can find the card at witf.org/PSBingo. So you can print your own, and then you'll want to watch and listen and spot the clues throughout all 6 episodes of Season 2.
And every week you can send us our clues at ps@witf.org, and I could definitely use that since I have already missed a few things. So.
Yes, clue us in.
Yes, let us know.
Clue us in on the clues. At the end of the season, we'll send you a YouTube link to a special bonus episode where we'll reveal all of the clues with screen captures and everything.
And Christina and I will be playing along too, as we've just alluded to. So play on your own with your friends or family.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun. I've been rewinding and rewatching a lot of stuff. So it's been a lot of fun, made more interactive. Yeah. So we will get into this episode. So are you ready for that?
Yeah, Season 2, Episode 2.
Okay. So in our opening scene, there's always an opening scene.
Yeah.
Miss Scarlet is speaking to Mrs. Parker about presenting to her Bloomberry's Lady Cultural Society about her detective work.
And this was like a segue right from the last episode, because she was talking with Hattie about this, and she didn't seem too enthusiastic about it, but then she winds up doing it anyway.
She does it anyway. I think she might secretly like Hattie a little bit. She's they're questioning her about the caliber of her clients.
Oh yeah, suggesting perhaps that she's second rate, which Eliza does not take kindly to.
And she's like, "Are you saying it's just poor and desperate people that hire me?" And they're basically saying, they can't afford your male counterpart, so they end up with you. And if we endorse you, it may reflect badly on the society's reputation.
Yeah, and about at that point, like, since the reputation is brought up, Eliza goes like full salvo, like no punches pulled, and just like takes out both the people, both the women on either side of Mrs. Parker.
Yep.
And it was just.
And Eliza does have dirt on Mrs. Parker. Well,
she held it back.
Rupert.
Yeah.
She didn't share that. She probably has dirt on Mrs. Parker as well.
Probably. She seems to be having dirt on it just about everybody. She's in the know.
She's attentive, but not a gossip.
Yes. Unless pushed to it like this in this situation.
Right.
But like, I love this opening because it's got that nice punch at the end where she just like bam bam, and like right out, she goes outside after this.
Hattie's just like, how did it go?
And the only thing is a slam door, and like that was like
that's it.
That's the answer right there.
It didn't go real well.
No. Cue title sequence. We're off into that. So it's very, very good.
I did pay attention to the new title sequence. It is new.
Yes.
And I was trying to remember if there were like clues along the way, but I don't remember enough of Season 2 to know if some of those are real and some of those are not real.
Yeah.
They seem to be more vague than the last season.
They are, and especially with any words that are in the title sequence, they're very, very either anonymous or just kind of blank.
But I wanted to let you know, yes. I did actually watch it. I watched it twice.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I do appreciate a good title sequence.
Yeah.
So after the title sequence, we cut to this like seedy opium den.
I had opium den with the question mark. I was like, no, I think this is an opium den. I think that was big then.
It looked like it. I remember Sherlock Holmes like frequented them as well. So it's like a theme with like detectives and such.
To use or to get information?
I think he was a user.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people were, so we're not going to judge here. Yep. So he goes to this opium den, and he's there to pick up Fitzroy. He hands off
William's
money.
There,
William's there to pick up Fitzroy, and he kind of hands the guy who's in charge of the den some money and says, "This goes nowhere." So the police are bribing the opium den owners. He finds Fitzroy and forcibly removes him, and I assume takes him back to Scotland Yard?
It looked like, I saw bars behind, so I assume it was like he sobered him up and dunked his head in the water like by one of the jail cells there.
Yeah,
so I assume it's Scotland Yard.
I think it's Scotland Yard.
And I would like to say that throughout this entire show, I really, like, Eliza is very, like, she notices everything and she just, like, absorbs all this information and puts it together. William's, like, special power is being able to find people. Like, he just, like, knows where people are and
Yeah,
he can
I mean,
find them.
who would have thought Fitzroy would be in an opium den other than his one allusion to poetry?
Yeah.
Like, I guess artists do end up there a lot.
They don't explain why, but I just
Yeah.
noticed that throughout this episode, other episodes, like, it just William just knows where to be at the right time when he finds people.
It's very convenient.
Yes.
Well, he had to search out Fitzroy because he didn't show up for his shift.
Yeah.
So that's why he's in trouble. And William shares basically that he's been ordered to turn him into a competent detective. So, gosh darn it, he's going to.
Yeah.
Which, great. I love that William's actually taking him under his wing because nobody else has obviously taken the time to teach him anything. They just go, yep, you're promoted.
Yes.
That's fine. Get out of my hair.
And you mentioned his William's good management skills in the last episode. So
yeah,
I think
it's in action. He's not nice about it,
I'm
but he
still a
does
jerk.
it. He's still a jerk about it, but he is doing right by Fitzroy in a way.
Definitely.
So then we cut to Eliza is venting to Hattie about not being second rate and taking desperate cases. And Hattie agrees, but she also suggests that you shouldn't make an enemy of Mrs. Parker. She says she has friends in high places and she will seek revenge.
Yeah, and they're just walking through the street while this is happening, but it's like, I was like, oh boy. I don't know if Eliza's going to really react to that as much.
No, I mean, I don't think she's worried about Mrs. Parker at all. But there is a man in a top hat waiting for Miss Scarlet, and she goes, does your aunt know men in top hats? Because then it's a man from an insurance agency. He introduces himself as Mr. Swab from Swab and Durston.
Yeah.
Hattie leaves us at this point. Last night, a sketch of the Black Witch Moth by Charles Darwin was stolen. And, of course, the value of his work has increased since his death because that's always how it works. Nothing's valuable until someone's dead.
And we find out that he just died recently within the year.
Earlier that year. And I kept wanting to Google. So maybe in part 2 I'll come back with, hey, Charles Darwin died this year. So we know sort of where we are.
And I wonder if the Black Witch Moth is an actual moth or just something they made up, like they did with the blue roses.
The blue rose. Yeah, I don't know. I did not Google that either.
I didn't, but that's something we can check out
at
some point. Or the listeners
during our break.
Let us know if you know. Leave us a comment or send us an email.
And because Eliza's coming into this knowing that she's quote unquote second rate and she's frustrated with that, she says, I will be charging my full rate. And he's like, of course, that's what we're going to pay you.
Oh, yeah, not a problem.
Yeah.
I would expect nothing less, I think he says.
I think that is what he says. William is already at the crime scene, the stolen Black Witch Moth.
So yeah, and the crime scene in this case is the Museum of Natural Science, and has Garrett above. So it's the last name.
Miss Garrett runs it.
Yep.
I'm glad that you wrote that down. It's this whole museum of natural history, essentially. And William's already there because obviously it's a theft. They've reported it to the police. The insurance companies are involved. And William is helping Fitzroy examine the scene. The sketch was removed from its frame. Tell me, what does that suggest? And Fitzroy's like furiously taking notes, but William's just like, no, pay attention. Tell me. It's not a rhetorical question. And he says, well, it's suggesting that the thief had time to steal it. So that's our first clue.
And William is actually happy that Fitzroy made a good deduction.
Yeah, he's actually made an observation and isn't just writing notes of whatever William says. But Eliza arrives, and she's already done her research on this moth. She calls it by its scientific name, and I wasn't even going to try to pronounce it or write it down.
Yeah, same.
So she has clearly done her research, though. She walks in, and she's just like, I know things.
She's book smart. That is definitely a skill of hers, yeah.
Yeah, and she shares that the insurance company has hired her to find this sketch, and William's like, well, what do they think I'm doing? And she's like, oh, they like to do their own investigation, all this nicety. She asks what other avenues William has to investigate. And she says she's just making polite conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But they're now in competition.
Yeah. Yeah, they are definitely in direct competition. And Fitzroy says, are you and her? And William's like, no.
I'm like... at this point, I'm like, is Fitzroy interested? Because they might be an okay pair.
They do seem to, like, he does definitely, like, his mood lightens when she's around.
He seems
so
to maybe he has a little crush on Eliza. I feel like maybe that's a possibility.
Yeah, definitely.
So Eliza's looking around.
Yeah, because they leave.
They
so
leave.
She's on her own now, still
and
in the
she's
museum.
basically waiting for Miss Garrett to show up.
Yes.
She's looking around at the bust, and then Miss Garrett walks in, the bust of Charles Darwin. Miss Garrett walks into the museum, and we find out that she runs the museum on her own. She's also very...
She was very
suspicious.
Yes, skeptical, suspicious.
Yes. Of Eliza being there. She's like, oh, the insurance company hired a woman because they thought they'd be more comfortable talking to a woman. And Eliza's like, no, it's because I'm really good at my job.
Because that's what she believes.
That's what she believes. That's what she's trying to like put out there in the world.
Yes.
So we learn through Miss Garrett that there's no sign of a break-in.
Mm-hmm. It happened overnight.
Okay. And the thief knew that the sketch was the only piece of value there. That's the only thing they took. Miss Garrett says she got the sketch after attending one of Darwin's lectures and asking about the moth. Mm-hmm. She asked him a question and he admitted he didn't know. Yeah. And then I guess a couple weeks later, this sketch arrived. Yeah, with the answer.
With the answer to her question that he did not have at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And her husband, Thomas Dashwood, who apparently is a well-known
Eliza
naturalist.
Recognizes the name. I don't know.
Yes, I don't know if it's real or not because I know Charles Darwin, but I know nobody else in the naturalist world. Her husband was furious, and then he resented her for setting up the museum. We also learn that they are separated because divorce would be too expensive financially and reputationally.
Which also is a motive. Which as soon as that happened, I was like, that's motive. Mm-hmm. So if Miss Garrett stole her own thing and got the insurance money back, then she might be able to afford divorce.
Oh, I was not thinking of
that's
it.
That's what I was thinking.
I felt like the reputation was the part that she was most worried about having to rebuild.
I think that probably,
true,
after the episode, that is true.
It felt like a motive to you because, money would
have been a motive.
Pay for a divorce.
For a divorce.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
So now that we have the name of her husband, who also has a motive to steal this piece of artwork that he's seemingly jealous about. That's what I'm feeling. Like maybe he's jealous that Charles Darwin is sharing information with his wife. Eliza goes to visit Mr. Dashwood. And he's kind of a jerk.
I know. I wrote down not very nice. I think I did that twice. Not very nice and then not nice. And he like lawyers up. He's like, you're going to have to speak to my lawyer.
If you want to talk to me, you got to get a lawyer. But yeah, she kind of just barges in, though, after the maid. She doesn't wait to be invited in. Not that she would have been invited in, and I think maybe she knows that.
And that was a running gag with the maid. The maid just, like, lets anybody in.
Apparently the maid is just like, come on in. Here he is. He's upset because he's late to giving a lecture at the Royal Institution. Oh, man. And Eliza keeps pressing in, asking questions about the theft at his wife's museum, and he says the sole intention of that woman is to humiliate and antagonize me. I was just like, he is rotten.
I think that's when I put the second.
Yeah, and he refuses to talk. But there is an older woman in the sitting room, and she's ready to talk. She makes a little comment after Mr. Dashwood leaves. Mm-hmm. And she asks Eliza who she is, and Eliza shares she's a private investigator. And this older woman, she's working on a word puzzle and having a coughing fit, but she's trying to. I can't remember what the clue was. A seven-letter word that's lofty, inspirational style or something. I can't remember.
I didn't write the clue, but I did write the word down.
Bombastic.
Bombastic.
Yeah. I just kept going, bombastic side-eye after she said it. So this woman's having a coughing fit. Eliza asks her to sit, and this woman lights up a pipe.
Yeah.
And she says she's used to seeing a face of disdain, and she doesn't know if it's because she's a woman, because she's a woman unwell, smoking, or if it's because she's German.
Yeah. Even though she's lived there for 50 years.
Yeah, she's been in London for a long time.
And Eliza says, I'd wager it was all three of those things.
Yes. Yeah. So. Well, Eliza's no stranger to, a woman trying to make her way in the world.
They have a bonding moment.
Yeah. But anyways, after Eliza gives her the bombastic, she goes, here, you take the puzzle to finish. This is when we also learn that Dashwood is her son.
Yes. So
And,
she's Mrs. Dashwood.
He doesn't like her doing puzzles. Like, I don't know. He doesn't like her thinking
I think I'm going to go look back at my notes and say not nice.
Not nice.
Definitely
He's
not
just
nice.
not nice.
Just not nice.
At her Eliza leaves, and when she comes back to her office, there's a line out the door, and I'm like, oh man, Eliza's busy. She's got so many cases.
I was really suspicious when this happened. I was like, okay, they're holding things, and then she like makes her way all the way up to the front.
All the way through. She has to weave her way through this line of people.
And Hattie's there. And Hattie is a little bit confounded by this all. She doesn't know what's going on either.
She says something like, everyone keeps saying they found it.
And then
we found it.
and then we cut to William's office where Eliza's filling him in on the fact that like all these people had
showed up with
fake Moth drawings,
forgeries of the sketches, and he holds one up that's like so badly drawn. He's like, "You think?" It's so bad. I would like to think I could do better, but I probably couldn't, which is why I'm not in the art forgery business.
To your credit, I mean,
it's also not
dangerous
a business I'd want
because
to be in.
I mean, as we saw from last season, the forgery can be problematic.
You might get kidnapped and locked in a jail cell.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
So,
we find out that someone has placed. So this is adding just more confoundment to this mystery. Somebody has placed an ad in the Police Illustrated News, I believe, with a reward for £1,000 for the return of this sketch. And has given Eliza's agency's address as, like, where to go.
Very specific. And William points out that that's, like, twice as much as the drawing was actually estimated to be worth.
Yeah, the sketch is only valued at, like, $500, which is good money back in Victorian England days, I'm sure. I say dollars. It was probably pounds, but I wrote it in dollars in my notes. William thinks it's odd that the insurance agency hired Eliza, and once again, she's frustrated because she's good at her job, dang it!
Yeah, but he says almost the exact same thing that Mrs. Garrett said, because it's to gain Miss Garrett's trust.
Yeah,
like that's
so
like
he's echoing every single
that's
thing
that's
that
a theme that's resurging
her.
in here.
But now she's there to also frustrate William because she has sent for a journalist at the newspaper because they need to question him.
And which journalist is it? Of course.
Basil Sinclair. Sinclair, right?
It's, I think they pronounce it Basil over there.
Basil
Sinclair.
Sorry.
Yes,
yes, I read the words.
Season 1, episode 4 over here, and it's
he's the one that's hailing, trying to get a tip that's like exciting. Yes. So the ad, we find out the ad was placed anonymously and that it was placed before the sketch was stolen.
Yeah.
So somebody knew the sketch was going to be stolen.
Premeditated.
Like, what is happening here? I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I watched this and I have no idea what's going on. And then
Basil praises Eliza a lot. Like he talks her up big, and William's like, well, and then he doesn't like that much, and then he just basically says, like, because Basil's like saying about how he has expertise in everything.
Oh yeah, he's an expert in every single thing.
And Mr. Sinclair must be a busy man with so many expertises. That's what William kind of talks about.
Yeah, well, he flatters Eliza by saying that she was hired because they don't trust the police.
That also gets
which
in
is
William.
why William is so upset about this.
And then Fitzroy barges in.
Fitzroy barges in.
And he discloses some info in front of the reporter, Basil. And so, like...
And Eliza.
Oh, yeah. And so William is not, like... William takes him aside and dresses him down a little bit about that. Notices that he looks rather warm, like he's all sweaty in his forehead and stuff like that. And Fitzroy just dismisses it.
He says the clement weather.
That's right,
The clement weather outside. He's like, don't use the word clement, please.
Yeah. And so they were outside of the office where Eliza was. Eliza comes out of the office to meets up with them, basically, and offers some constructive...
she wants to offer some unsolicited advice.
William's like, no.
Right.
just shuts her down. That doesn't stop her. She's like, I'm going to give you the advice anyway.
Yeah, because that's Eliza's style.
Yes.
She also asks about the art dealer, and she says, is the art dealer on the black market? And William just doesn't answer her. She goes, that's all the answer I need. He is. Got it. There's no expression you have that I cannot read, William. And so she knows that the art dealer's in the black market. And Eliza suggests that William and her work together.
Instead of being in competition.
Yes. So it's very hot and cold, very confusing. William refuses, so she threatens to partner with Basil.
Yeah.
And expose William's secrets.
Yeah, specifically about how he was drunk on duty and lost his warrant card.
I'm glad you wrote that down because I
like,
forgot what secrets she was going to expose.
And like, it's like, how he asks, like, how did you know that? And she, like, cheerily, this is like, it touches back to like what was said earlier. It's like, she's like, people speak to me. It's my warm and approachable manner. So that was pretty. And William's like, fine.
You know,
like,
I can identify with that actually because people do tell me things that I have not asked them to tell me, and it's usually like a deep dark secret that they shouldn't just be telling a stranger. That when I was a bank teller, man, I said that job is bartending, but without the alcohol. Like people come in, they tell you their stories, they just dump it all out there, and everybody else at the bank was like, "Why does that keep happening to you?"
Oh,
I'm like, I don't know.
Not everyone, just specifically
it's just
you.
me.
Oh,
so I must have Eliza's warm and welcoming manner.
Yes, warm and approachable manner. Yes, most definitely.
Oh, so anyways, after this, we cut to the museum, and Dashwood is there threatening to expose his wife, Miss Garrett, for what she really is.
Yeah. So, and that's Miss Garrett and Dashwood again, still married. They're having an argument, and Eliza just overhears this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, for what she really is, in quotes, it seems kind of like, what does this even mean?
Perhaps.
Like, what does he think she is? Like, is she what he thinks she is? Meanwhile, William is off to visit the art dealer, but the art dealer refuses to talk to him.
No.
Yeah. Until William threatens to check on all of the art in the office that obviously it's all legitimate art, right?
Well, the art dealer says that he's turned over a new leaf, basically, that he's gotten rid of all his ways. That was all
in the past.
And like he's a changed man. And William's like, yeah, your last conviction was just 6 weeks ago. So,
oh, that's right.
So that's all out of the way.
Very recent.
And so then William definitely threatens to, like, basically turn over the whole place.
All of the art.
Have to check to see.
Right.
And the art dealer just like completely folds underneath that. Mr. Gibson, I think, is his name.
Okay.
So he folds under the pressure, and he reveals that the person that they actually need to talk to is the Count.
That's all I could think of.
Yeah, I actually wrote that down.
2.
One piece of art.
So, yeah, we're going to take a break at that because somebody has to find the Count and question him. But will it be William or will it be Eliza? Because Eliza knows everything. She has a connection to the seedy underbelly of the world.
They're in competition and not in competition. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to see after the break.
Yep. Welcome back. So when we took our break, we were looking for the Count.
Yes.
And Eliza has found the Count first.
Yes.
So
she followed Garrett, Miss Garrett.
Yeah.
And last time we saw her, she was like kind of sneaking around after she heard that like there was the argument, and then she followed.
Oh, okay.
And that's
I missed that part.
Yeah,
that's how she found the CD bar.
Yes.
Okay.
So she followed, like, and there was talking to a man with Miss Garrett is talking to a man with a wooden leg. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. See, I was taking my copious notes, so I must have missed all of that.
All
right.
Yeah.
So, she makes her way to the CD bar, and she's watching the man. She's watching the Count, and he gets up. She's like drinking whiskey, I guess. And she sees him leave, so she gets up and follows him. Mm-hmm. And of course, he pulls a gun on her because he's a bad man.
Yeah. I mean, she just like walks out, like right around the corner, and suddenly it's like gun right in her face.
Yep.
And like he's pretty intent that he will shoot her.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Like,
well, he demands to know who she is, or he'll shoot her in the head.
Yeah.
Like specifically.
And then I love this interchange. She's like, "No, you will not." And he's like, "Why?" Basically. And she's like, "A police officer standing right behind you."
There's a policeman
and we're like, "No."
you.
And then they do that cool thing where they do the camera shift a little bit, so it's to the side, and like, oh, there's William.
There's William. He's just showed up.
This is my point. He finds people.
He finds people exactly when he needs to find them.
That might be just the show plot, like, way, but it's also kind of like he's a detective, and maybe that's his special skill.
He could just have a spidey sense where he just knows where everybody is at all times. So William has a gun on the Count's head, And they bring the Count inside because obviously he's not going to shoot anybody.
Yes.
Or he will die. So he's going to be questioned. And they find out he's part of an old Hungarian dynasty. Yeah. Did you write down his name?
I Bozansky. Bozansky. He's like, oh, I'm a Bozansky. And everyone's like, no, you don't know what that means. like he thinks that they should.
So he's trying to like make it seem like he's a big tough guy and like don't mess with me.
Got connections.
So Eliza threatens to have William use his leg as firewood because she knows about the wooden leg because she's observant.
Yes, it's kind of a noticeable thing. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't trying to hide it.
No, okay, and the guy. He folds. He says, okay, he tells him what he knows is that Miss Garrett wasn't trying to sell anything. She was trying to buy. And he hasn't heard anything. And, but her husband always pays very well.
Yeah. No, so he's basically like, you shouldn't be looking at her. You should be looking at Mr.
attention.
Yeah,
Mr.
Dashwood.
Dashwood.
So,
back at Scotland Yard, William is going to get a search warrant so that they can search Mr. Dashwood's house. And
and Eliza's there, and Eliza's being like an irritation to William, I guess.
As usual, yeah.
So he doesn't really want her to come along, and he straight up like. Did he not watch? Was he not in the last episode where she said she didn't want to be dictated to, and he like straight up dictates to her like, "You will not be coming with me." So I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah, but he wasn't on board. That they're not together, so he gets to dictate to her because they're not in a relationship.
Yeah. Well, knowing Eliza though, like he says, that is my final word on the matter, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna back. Like,
not gonna.
He should know by now that if he says something like that,
she's just gonna follow him.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is when we meet Mr. Lohman, who has arrived to talk about the case, and we find out that he's from the insurance company that insured the drawing.
The real
insurance agency.
So this is where my dad would make this joke where he'd say the thickened plots, like it's instead of saying the plot thickens. I don't know. My dad thought this was really the thickens plot. So anyway, that's where this goes. So like we're like, oh, here's a new change in the whole situation that the person Schwab, who we always thought was the insurance guy,
nope,
is someone else.
It was a lie.
So we have to figure that out.
Yeah. So Eliza smartly goes to the address on the card and finds out that the building is just condemned and ruined and abandoned.
Yep.
So she goes back to her office, and Hattie's looking at the card. She really likes the card. She likes the typography. She likes the velvet finish. Her dad was in the printing business.
I wrote down, I was like, Hattie is a font nerd. I was like, yes.
I identified too.
Yes. As someone who works in the design,
There's nothing quite like a well-chosen font.
Yes. Yes.
So she's looking at it, she's analyzing it, and Eliza asks for her help to figure out who ordered these cards, and Hattie is like,
oh my gosh.
She's psyched.
She
is so hyped about this. She's like, you want my help?
Yeah. Like an assistant, she
says. Like an assistant.
And Eliza's like, Yes. And so, and then Hattie's like into all the 12 types of calligraphy and very excited and all that. Yeah. So then after that, we cut to William, who's knocking on the door at the Dashwoods, following up with that.
Yeah.
And Dashwood's mother is sick in bed with a doctor, and William and company have a warrant. So they're like Fitzroy. They're like
they're there. They're officially their own business,
looking through everything.
Around. And Dashwood's real mad because his mother is ill and he's being investigated.
Yes.
But he's just mad in general.
It's also funny that the maid let them in again. So that's another thread again. The maid's just like, yeah, you can come on in.
They do have a search warrant.
Yes. She did not get sacked by anyone, no.
During this visit, though, Fitzroy passes out.
Yeah, there's a thump.
He just falls over, and
collapsed.
William actually covers for him back at the station.
Well, there's a scene right between. So there's the collapsing, and then we cut to the doctor's office or the hospital. It's the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Where Fitzroy's in bed. And then we immediately cut from that back to Scotland Yard, and that's when he's with Monroe.
Right.
And you're right. And he covers.
For Fitzroy. So, he's doing him a solid.
Yeah. Like, he lies straight up, says he's doing very well. He's out on the case, doing well.
He's totally just 100% lying about it.
He's getting better as a detective, but hopefully he's getting better in the hospital. So
right.
He doesn't say that.
In both ways. Yeah. Hopefully he's going to figure his life out.
Yes.
And then at the print shop, they find out.
Cut to the stationery company or whatever.
Hattie is very good at this investigation because she goes to this print shop and they know exactly who ordered the cards.
Yes.
It was a Mr. Reginald Booth.
Yeah.
So he's a solicitor.
So yeah, we cut to...
And Eliza goes to his office, breaks into his office, I guess.
Picks the lock, goes in like she does.
Yes, and she finds a file for Dashwood. So, she helps herself to that.
Yes.
And then Mr. Booth.
And there's a photo. There's a pawnbroker, and she picks up a picture.
I missed that.
There's a picture frame as well. A photo of Swab and a woman.
Oh, right. That's right. So she knows that she's in the right place.
Yes.
Yeah.
She recognizes Swab is definitely the top-hatted guy.
The short top-hatted guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So then we cut back to Scotland Yard after that, and William is already with Swab, who is now pretending to be not pretending, but is.
Now he is Mr. Booth.
He is Mr. Booth, who's a lawyer for the Dashwoods, and informing William about Mrs. Dashwood's passing. Mm-hmm. Which I didn't know if that actually happened, and it did actually happen.
Yeah, it did.
I was like, yeah.
She was not well. Yeah, so Dashwood's mother's died, and Mr. Booth is there to request Scotland Yard to stop harassing Dashwood and threatens legal action. But William recognizes his Welsh accent because Eliza described him.
Yes, yeah.
And
the birthmark.
And the birthmark. Okay. Yes. He was also wearing his top hat, I believe.
Well, she mentioned the top hat, and then she actually she actually mentioned the birthmark as well.
Yeah.
And so when William takes
to notice somebody's birthmark.
I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it when they first met.
She's observant.
She's very observant. So when William asks him to take off his hat and the birthmark's like right there, that's like locked in. It's not just like, oh hey, you had a top hat. It's no, you check this box, this box, and this box. You're the person.
Top hat. Let me see your forehead.
And he says, an associate. William says, an associate of mine.
Yeah. So suddenly they're associates now.
Yes. Not always in competition. So then we cut to Eliza outside of Dashwood's house, and Dashwood leaves by carriage, and Eliza once again picks the lock.
Goes right in, helps herself.
And inside she's looking for clues. She sees Mrs. Dashwood lying in the bed with a cross on her chest. Mm-hmm. She's dead.
Yes.
And then this is where like something weird happens. Mm-hmm. Like the moth flies in.
Oh yeah, there's a moth.
Yeah.
Does it fly into a hole or out of a hole?
Well, it flies.
Like a keyhole?
It flies by her and goes to the lamp, as moths are to do, and then it flies to a keyhole that's in the wall. The wall's wallpapered, and it's like one of those like doors that's like looks like a wall, like they have like at the Oval Office. There's like walls that look like or doors that look like walls.
Bookcases, walls, yeah.
So there's the moth goes into the keyhole, which I feel is very unmoth-like.
No, that is very. I have not often seen bugs land on a keyhole and climb inside.
Well, not moths. Moths are just hanging out.
Yeah, they're like, this is lights. Yeah.
But anyway.
Look, fire. Let me dive into it. Yes.
Never got nothing. No, but the moth goes through the keyhole, and so then the door's locked. Eliza, once again,
picks the lock. Expert lock picker.
Yes. So she gets lots of practice. That's very, very true. So she picks the lock, and then at that moment we cut away from her to William, and William's still with Booth.
Still with Booth at Scotland Yard.
Yeah, he assures him he's not arrested, but he definitely pressures Booth to cooperate, and he threatens him with a fraud charge because he knows that he was pretending to be
he was lying.
The insurance person. So this is when Booth works for the Dashwood family.
Yeah, he confesses that he's worked for the Dashwood family.
And so we're like thinking one thing, and then it's revealed that it's not Thomas Dashwood.
No, it's Mrs. Dashwood.
His mother. Yeah.
Not Mrs. Dashwood, his wife.
No, this is
Miss Garrett.
I was the pipe smoking lady.
Yeah, the lady with the pipe
recently.
smoke.
Yes,
lady. When Eliza breaks into the room at the Dashwoods, she finds just so much stuff that shows that Mrs. Dashwood was an explorer. Mm-hmm. She knew about Miss Scarlet. There was the police illustrated blotter.
She was following.
So she was following Miss Scarlet. She knew about her.
She pretended not to know when she was doing the crossword puzzle.
To engage with her. But she hired Mr. Booth to bring Eliza into the fold.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a puzzle.
So we cut back to Eliza's office with William there. And that's pretty much when it's all laid out, like you just said. So that Mrs. Dashwood, the pipe lady, hired Eliza via booth and loved puzzles. And 7-letter puzzle is one thing that was like something that was said, and she's like pondering
7
about
words, the 7-letter words.
Yeah, 7-letter puzzle, she says. And so, what's a 7-letter puzzle? And that's an anagram because it's 7 letters.
William says anagram.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So he's helping.
Yes, he is.
And she kind of looks at the business card and says exactly.
This is the Swab.
This is the Swab and Durston business card. She knows this is an anagram for something, so they have to figure out what it means.
Yes.
And she knows.
She knows
where the drawing is.
And so then we cut to the museum with Mrs. Garrett.
Right.
And Mr. Sinclair, the reporter, Basil.
Basil's there. Yep.
And Sinclair is like... Sinclair's worried because when they describe the situation, he thinks that it's going to be an act of kindness and a boring story. Right. So he's like, oh no, is this going to be like a kind thing? And like
this
no,
isn't going to be dramatic enough. I don't. Yeah.
No. So Eliza explains the whole Swab and Durston is actually an anagram for
Darwin's bust.
Yes, which we saw earlier in the show.
Excellent at word games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was the bust she was examining.
Yes, earlier, yeah.
When at the very beginning of the episode, she looks at the bust intently.
And so now that she's revealed that, she picks it up and just smashes it on the floor.
Yeah, she slams it on.
So when
and
I
everyone's like,
when I saw this, I was like, what if she's wrong? What if it was what if it was like under the bust?
Yeah, it was just right there. It was just
or
laying
behind
under
the bust, and she didn't have to break it, but it actually was
inside the bust. Yeah. It's for drama.
It's for drama.
It is for drama.
Yeah.
And she also does know, because Miss Garrett told her, that the drawing's the only thing of value.
Yes.
So the bust is probably
that's
disposable.
A good point. I didn't think of that.
At least there's that.
Just take things and just throw them everywhere.
So she just shattered it,
yeah.
and the drawing was just sitting underneath it.
And that.
You know, she could pay that with her fee.
Yeah.
She could pay for the bust.
It's a very expensive thing. We're just going to smash it. I mean, breaking a bust probably wouldn't tear a tiny piece of paper, but apparently it didn't. So we're good.
Right. We're fine.
Suspension of disbelief.
And we learn that Miss Dashwood hoped that the case of this stolen sketch would generate enough publicity for the museum to bring in visitors.
The whole thing was a ploy.
An elaborate plot to it was a publicity stunt.
It
Mrs.
worked.
Dashwood,
and she knew that she was dying, so she knew that
So what was going to happen to her?
Yeah.
She's like, I'm ill, I'm smoking my pipe, I'm German, nobody likes me. I'm just going to steal this and put it in the bust of Charles Darwin.
No regrets. No regrets whatsoever. Yeah.
I liked the line where I think Eliza says it's the story of a woman trying to make it in a man's world.
Yes.
So I liked that because they have to get so creative in order to get any attention on the things that they're really good at in this world.
Yes.
But yeah, Basil's there. So Miss Garrett thanks Miss Scarlet, and
I love that.
Basil's there, and he's
I love that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Yeah. Right after they're like, the story of a woman trying to make it in a man's world.
Basil totally takes the credit. Yeah. There was a lot of good dialogue in that whole sequence there. And so then after,
Basil Sinclair says business will be booming thanks to him. Yeah.
My cup runneth over. He says. So then after that, that's kind of good closure. We cut to you could basically stop the episode there if you wanted to, but there's more.
It was a good ending. There is more, and this is more character development and relationship building, which I love. Yeah.
So we cut to outside where both William and Eliza are there, and they're talking with each other, and that's kind of they're wrapping up that the museum will be successful. And Eliza confides that William was right about the insurance company hiring her,
because she was a woman, and not because she's good at her job.
Yes.
And William points out that it's nothing to do about the fact that she's a woman. I mean, there's nothing to do about the fact that she's a woman. Let me say it with the emphasis at the right place.
Yes.
Just as he is a man and Scottish and young enough to say he's only 30 years old and old enough to know better. So essentially he's saying, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing to be done. So
you have the cards that you're dealt. You got to make the best of it.
Right. And she's kind of like, well, what does any of that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
And he says something like, there's nothing better to deceive than a drunken Scot at a poker table, especially a Glaswegian. I've never heard. It's like Glasgow.
Glasgowian, yeah, basically.
Wegian. Anyway, who apparently can't hold his wine. So he uses this to make people think that he's drunk.
Which ties back to the earlier thing that Eliza was holding that against him because he was drunk and lost his warrant card. But, like, maybe he
did it on purpose.
Maybe it was all a front.
It was all just to make somebody think that he slipped up so that he could swoop in.
I don't know.
But he uses it to his advantage.
Yeah.
Like, all of these things about him.
And I will say that in this moment, he's not being a jerk.
No, he's not being a jerk.
He's actually being nice.
I realized at the end of the first episode that this was the season that I started to like him because I felt genuinely sad that they were basically breaking up at the end of that first episode because he was showing her actual kindness and respect, except that he just couldn't conform within society. Yeah. And then I felt really sad for him.
So.
But yeah, he is not being a jerk.
No.
So this is the season I started to like William. But he tells her, just use what you have to your advantage. Yep. Like she is a smart lady. She knows how to do that sort of thing. She's done it in the past.
She does it.
So like, don't look at it as a detriment. Use it to your advantage. Okay, so what? They hired you because you're a woman. You got hired. Yep.
and that being a woman gives her access to certain things that he wouldn't have as a man, or certain techniques or stuff like that. So aspects.
Well, I mean, she can talk to women more easily. Yeah. She has access to that sort of thing.
She has that warm and approachable manner.
Yeah, that warm and approachable manner.
So after all this character building back there, then William confesses that he really wanted to punch Sinclair, like Basil.
And he really wanted to get away before Basil could find him.
And right then,
he shows up.
Basil's like just walking up in the background.
And he's like, I think he asks him for a ride or something.
Yeah. He does. Eliza smiles at that. So it's just like it's like you get your just desserts a little bit for that, just wanting to punch, and then you're stuck with them.
Now I have to be nice. Now I have to be effusive and gentle. Fitzroy. So William goes to visit Fitzroy in the hospital too, and we find out Fitzroy's going to be okay, but it was like kind of dicey.
Yeah.
His heart rate was dangerously erratic. And William did not tell the doctors what he suspected caused that. No. So he's just covering him at all angles.
Well, and Fitzroy thought he would. Fitzroy thought that he would like basically say that he collapsed to Monroe. He thought that once again he was going to be tossed out.
Yeah, or moved on to somebody else who's just going to promote him just because.
And William admits that he did not sell him out, but he also says it's like, I helped you in this situation. I didn't rat you out that you collapsed on the job. But he also says the reason why is because William's head is on the block basically for Fitzroy's misfortune.
Yeah, Monroe is expecting him to
and
push him through the ranks. And
so Fitzroy feels like he's an embarrassment. He explains that the opium provides him with relief for all the pressure, like everything. That's
he's like relentlessly bullied by his family. Yeah. I mean, and the men at the station. I mean, they're commenting on his hair and his ability and like everything about him. But it's mostly the embarrassment to the family, I feel, that's probably pushing him over the edge. Yeah. He uses it as an escape.
Yeah. And William shares that he tells of the daily beatings that he had back at the workhouse. Yeah. So he's saying that, like, people have rough lives.
Yeah, he's like, you'll get no sympathy from me. He didn't say it in a nice way. He said, you'll get no sympathy from me. I grew up in the workhouse.
Yeah.
But Fitzroy feels, I guess, a connection with William because he says, I'll do whatever it takes to make you proud.
Yeah. He says...
So William is now his daddy.
Yeah. He says, of all the men I've worked under... you are the most decent of all of them.
Yeah.
And so that is like a big thing where like even William, who's kind of a
rough and tumble.
Yeah, he's like
he's blunt. I guess we should say he's not really mean. He's just blunt.
Yeah, he's blunt.
He just says blunt. Exactly.
Sometimes he can be mean.
He's a little mean.
Yeah,
but he's mostly blunt.
But I think that Fitzroy sees that he's at least being decent.
Yeah, and he's trying to help him improve. Yeah. He sees he's putting the time in with him which his other managers didn't do.
No. And so Fitzroy offers to William to be on administration duty.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm extremely organized.
He says, I'll be good at that.
Yeah.
And then I can learn the basics, which I thought was really nice. And then William tells him, just be on time and get a bloody haircut.
Yes.
So this hair, William's going to help him by saying, fix your hair.
Okay.
So that at least there's one less thing for the men to pick on him about. And then we get another. So there's more.
There's more. You think
more.
that's going to be the end of the show episode? No. We cut to the street outside of Eliza's office, and Mrs. Parker is there. Oh, boy.
And you're like, oh, she's come to exact her revenge.
Yep. And so the vengeance has cometh. And so we cut to inside, and Mrs. Parker says she's so humiliated, and she threatens Eliza, and she said she'll ruin her and her business, or at least those thoughts went through her head right afterwards. But now
she's reconsidered because she's learned that Eliza told no lies.
Yeah.
So she did her own little investigation. She found out her friends do have some skeletons in the closet.
And Eliza's actually good at her job.
Yeah, she's actually good at her job. So Mrs. Parker wants to hire Eliza.
This is so weird.
To investigate the men she has chosen as suitors for Hattie.
Yes.
Which, I mean, it would be nice to get a background check on some single men before you date them. I won't lie about that. And having somebody like Eliza on your side, you're probably going to get a pretty decent man.
Good
She's
intel.
going to find something wrong with the ones that aren't great.
Yeah, I kind of worry about the ones that Mrs. Parker has selected.
I mean, she's probably just going for, status and...
Well, she asks for a complete vetted, complete dossier.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing.
Yeah, she wants full
folders.
investigation. Which, actually, now that I think about it, kind of nice of Mrs. Parker. That
it is.
She wants them investigated before she puts Hattie forward. So,
Yes.
I mean, she does obviously
to her
care
credit.
about Hattie, I guess.
To her credit, yes.
And we find out that Hattie's the same age as Eliza, too.
Yes.
She seems younger.
She does seem younger.
But...
And I also, this is what, when I was thinking of potential husbands for Hattie, thinking just from a show perspective.
Yeah.
I was like Hattie and Fitzroy.
I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I haven't watched ahead, so maybe that does happen. I'm not sure, but they're two new characters for this season, and they're both kind of adrift, and they both seem to be of similar interests and such.
Yeah,
so they
have a lot of familiar personality.
Yes,
they're both kind of aloof. They're both very friendly.
Yes,
both would say both awkward and optimistic.
Yes.
So I wouldn't hate it.
So okay, I'm no spoilers. I'm not looking at you on this.
I'm not going to spoil anything because that is a romance that I would fully approve.
Okay.
So Eliza, because Mrs. Parker has talked about her fee and poor people and desperate people. She says that Mrs. Parker is willing to pay the full fee. Mm-hmm. And she came to her. Eliza's like, well, why did you choose me? She's like, well, I came to you simply because you're the only private investigator I know.
And it's not more complex than that.
And it's not any more complicated than that. So that's how the episode ends.
Well, there's one.
Is there a little bit more?
One last line.
Okay.
So there's that. That's when Mrs. Parker leaves, and the very last line of the episode is Eliza saying to herself, "Do not make it so, Eliza." And then that's the end of the episode. And I didn't really understand what she meant by that.
More complicated.
Oh, more complicated.
Yeah,
okay, more complex.
She's reflecting on exactly what
what
William said to her. Do not make it so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's the end of the episode. The only other note that I have is no Moses in this entire episode.
Oh.
It's a weird, he just wasn't there.
I love Moses, and I didn't even notice.
I was like...
There was so much happening.
There was a lot.
Huh.
So he's off doing something else. Maybe we'll find out next episode.
I wonder if he also a little bit... Well, he does have his own little side quests we learn in this season, so he may have been off doing something else. But I didn't actually notice. I I feel bad about that.
That's okay.
But
no, you see, you knew he was in other episodes.
Yeah,
so there was
he'll
concern.
He'll be back in season 2. There's more Moses coming.
Yeah. Okay, good. He's a very good character.
So yeah, any final thoughts or?
No, that's it.
No, I can't remember what episode is next, so I'm excited to watch it.
So yeah, thanks for watching and listening along with us.
And I hope you've enjoyed Postscript Bingo, like playing along with us. Once again, as you find your clues, you can email us at ps@witf.org.
And at the end of the season, we'll send you a YouTube link to our special bonus episode where we reveal all of the clues. Hopefully, I'll find out some too because I'm trying to spot them as we go through.
I've rewatched and I'm playing along and I'm like, I missed one in episode 1 and I'm so mad about it.
and we've seen different things and we haven't shared exactly.
No, I haven't shared my card with you, so we'll have to see at the end how many we both get. So if you love Postscript, be sure to review us on your favorite podcast platform. Like, subscribe, and comment at youtube.com/@WITF Mosaic. And
and we'll see you for episode 3.
Yeah, see you next time.
Thanks.